Hello and welcome to this episode of The Weekend Spectator with Paul and Grace. We're excited to be with you today, and we're going to be talking about the assassination attempt on former President Trump, which was just insane and crazy to watch. Paul Kengor's son was actually at the rally, so he has some insight from that perspective. And I actually went to this same rally 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, back when I was attending school at Grove City, since the location is Butler, Pennsylvania, which is where Paul Kengor grew up and right near Grove City. So we have those ties there, and it was just a really crazy thing to watch this past week.
Yeah. Thanks, Grace. Good to be with you again. It was completely crazy, and yeah, I'm from Butler, Pennsylvania, and the shooter is from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, and in fact, Bethel Park. I can name a number of different people from Bethel Park. I think Mark Cuban is from Bethel Park. Scott Hahn is from Bethel Park. He's a Grove City College graduate, a well-known Catholic apologist. A lot of people from that area. But I was born in Pittsburgh in December 1966, moved to Butler when I was 4 years old, started elementary school at Center Township Elementary School in Butler, graduated Butler High School class of '84. I can name a number of people from Butler, including Rick Santorum. Rick Santorum also went to Butler High School.
Wow.
And I was driving through.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
did you come to Grove City? I mean, I had a lot of friends who were not only at this rally, but friends who went to the same high school or grew up right in the same area. A lot of friends from right where this all happened, right where the shooter's from, and it was really crazy, especially because of that. Even I had friends sending me videos from the rally, nothing different than what you've all seen online as far as just the crowd and the chaos, but and just the craziness of that moment, but really just insane. Words can't even describe how, I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah, and so you were at the last rally in Butler, right? That would have been 4 years ago, I guess, the 2020 campaign.
Mhm.
And so Grace went to Grove City College, graduated in May 2024, and I live in Grove City, Pennsylvania now because I teach at Grove City College. And what, Grace? It's about a 25-minute drive
Yeah.
to the Butler Farm Showgrounds,
It was
and
in the fall. It was with friends. We went, and right now I'll put a picture on the screen so you can see. But a group of us went from Grove City, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, at those rallies, for anyone who's ever been, the energy is through the roof. You can't even describe it or replicate it. It's like something else being there in person, and so it was so much fun when we went. But it was especially crazy to watch, thinking, "Whoa, this is a close to home thing too." On top of
well,
already.
and that one that you went to 4 years ago, I think that might have been the biggest Trump rally, right? I
Was
mean,
at the time, it was huge. It was crazy. It was an insane experience, and that may have been my first time seeing him speak. I've seen him now probably double digits maybe or something like that. But at the time, that was my first experience, I think. I'm pretty sure.
yeah,
Maybe.
probably 50,000 people, right? Maybe
Oh
at
yeah,
that Butler
it was
rally.
easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
so
heard
much
numbers.
enthusiasm.
Yeah, I've heard numbers even higher than that. And so much so that Trump decided that in 2024 he was going to go back to Butler, right?
Yeah.
And so with that happening, I emailed the night before, Friday night, Melissa McKenzie, our publisher, Volodya Plazinski, who's been with us since 1980, Jeff Lord, who writes for us, knows the Trump campaign really well, and I emailed the three of them. But I put in the subject head something like Butler, Pennsylvania is my hometown, or something like that, because I knew that would grab their attention. And I said, should I go to the rally tomorrow to cover it for us for the magazine? And we kind of went back and forth a little bit. And I said, my son is going to go because my son, who I have five sons, and this one is 16 years old. He had a friend who had a friend who was a volunteer for the Trump campaign, and he was going to go. And my son said, wow, this is a chance to see history, see a former president. Sounds like an exciting thing to do. So I thought, Grace, well, maybe I'll go too, right? Maybe I could even give them a ride down there. And then I saw the weather forecast, and I don't like going to these big rallies or doing any of that. It was going to be a hot, long day. Probably have to get there really early, get home late at night. I'd rather spend Saturday night with my family, right? We usually have family snack and movie night That's like our weekly ritual on Saturday night at the Kengor
And you
household.
can't miss the family time. And it's true that going to the rallies is a whole production in itself. That yeah, you'll be there. It's a whole day thing.
Well, there were people who were dehydrated at that rally, and I got a couple emails from different people, know different people, because I've so many people that I knew were at that rally, and one woman had to be taken to Butler Hospital for dehydration because it was just so hot, and so they missed the shooting, fortunately, and they were at the Butler Hospital when all these black Suburbans came flying down in there, and in fact, her husband said that he got a phone call from a friend at the rally saying Trump has been shot, and the friend thought, I have no idea what's going on, and then he looks out the window of the hospital and he sees Trump walking into the hospital.
Yeah, there were some videos where people in the waiting room at this hospital were just, I mean, they were crying, all panicked, hoping he was okay, but they saw him walk in, and that's when they knew, okay, it's okay, he's walking, luckily, because no one knew how bad it was or what happened. The whole thing was pretty scary. Into the heat stroke, when I went to the rally, it was probably 30 degrees, so I had the
Oh,
opposite
wow.
problem.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, no, very different weather,
but
and
yeah,
uh,
a bunch of friends, people who were there. I mean, and even like so many people were there that I knew, even people who aren't even necessarily into politics, which is always cool to see. I
yeah,
mean,
right. Yeah, I mean, you want to go there just to be a part of history, right? That's how my son felt about it, and I got to tell you, my wife and I had a bad feeling about it. And right now, I'm talking to you guys from the offices of the American Spectator, and you can see our the different bound volumes here on the wall. And Bob Terrell and I have been talking about this for several months. And Bob has been around politics forever, and Bob's new memoirs opens with a story talking about him being behind Robert F. Kennedy Sr. in Indiana in 1968 on the stage a few weeks before Kennedy was shot. And so, we both have a good historical sense about these things. And Terrell said to me, he said, I don't know, Paul. Trump's got to be careful, man. You just have a feeling with these big rallies is something could happen, right? Something could happen. And my wife asked me, Grace. She said, "Do you think it's okay that we let John, our son, go to the rally?" I said, yeah, I mean, the last time anybody was shot was Reagan, March 1981. Before that, that's a sitting president. Before that, in the campaign trail, I don't know, George Wallace, Bobby Kennedy. And it should be okay. I can't imagine that they wouldn't have this covered. And then there we are. So to go back to the original emails with Jeff Lord, Jeff Lord said, Paul, you don't really need to go. You could watch it on TV. Newsmax is covering the whole thing start to finish, right? No interruptions, not dropping in, covering the whole thing. I said, all right, so I'll turn it on Newsmax. So my wife and I are sitting there, we have it on, and we're looking in the back of the behind Trump to see if our son is standing back there, right? Like a parent would do. And then all of a sudden, you hear these shots and you see Trump kind of do this with his ear and drop down. And we both just said, "Oh no, I can't believe it. Oh no, oh no." And my wife started saying, "Yeah, I knew it. I knew we shouldn't have let him go. Our son, John. I knew we shouldn't have let him go. I knew it." And she just dropped to her knees right there in the living room and started praying. And a lot of people watching this are probably thinking, I hope you're praying for the president. Yeah, we were praying for everybody. The president, your first instinct as a parent is that you hope your kid's okay. But we're praying for everybody. And Trump got up so quickly and that iconic, I mean, fight, fight, fight. My wife and I, at that point, even with our anxiety, we kind of laughed. We're like, "Wow, look at Trump just got up and said, fight, fight, fight." Wow, it's spectacular,
brilliance and courage. I mean,
right? This is an
even
amazing thing. And then I grab my phone, right, and I'm kind of fumbling, trying to text my son, "Are you okay?" Right, in caps. It took me about a minute to simply type that. And then I hit send, and my wife said, he doesn't have cell service. He told me when he just got there that he wasn't going to have cell service. So for about 20 agonizing minutes, we were wondering if our son was okay. And we kept freezing the screen. This is after Trump gets up, walks away. It's pretty clear he's all right, right? Anybody that could walk away from that is probably okay. And we're like freezing the screen in the back. Is that John back there? Is that John's friend so and so? Because we figured anybody, 4 or 5 bullets are fired, that who's ever behind the press, those bullets have to land somewhere.
Well, and also we at the time, it's like you don't know if more are coming. No, you don't know what's going on
Exactly.
at the moment. And
Exactly.
that's the other reason. I mean, Trump, the resilience and courage, he doesn't know if another one's coming, which I mean, that's why the Secret Service shouldn't have let him do it. But obviously, I mean, amazing that he was able to, because that's something that will go down in history forever. And also the courage and resilience that was shown through that moment is something words can't really I don't there's just something about it. It was
It's epic. I mean, that is a photo and image for the ages. And I later heard the audio played very clearly. I mean, I became obsessed with this for the next 24, 48 hours, right? It's my hometown, it's people I know. My sister-in-law was supposed to be behind Trump. She decided not to go to the rally. One of the mom of a spectator person, in fact, one of our interns was supposed to be there with her family. The mom of one of our former spectator interns was supposed to be behind Trump. She said it was too hot. She requested moving a little bit up front instead. But I later heard audio, and I could hear the Secret Service guy saying to President Trump, "The shooter is down. The shooter's down." So they knew right away that I guess it was safe to get up and start walking out of there, or kind of safe. And that's a whole other thing altogether, right? So people ask, how in the world did this shooter get up there, climb up on the roof? And you probably saw, Grace, the video of the guy, the redheaded guy, the BBC interviewed him. It was replayed on CNN and elsewhere. And he said for about 2 minutes, he and people around him were yelling, "There's a guy on the roof. He's got a rifle."
We noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle.
A rifle.
We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, "Hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle." And the police are like, "Huh, what?" Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, "Hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling." And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And there's
He's on the
also
roof.
And on top of that, so since that video came out, there are all sorts of reports, all sorts of new videos that have come out that show that people were alerting authorities that this guy was sketchy or up on the roof. There are videos where you can hear people tell. So this is also more confirmed now that authorities were made aware of this. And then they came out and said that they knew that he was up there for at least 26 minutes. So and then there's more reports that he had gotten stopped by Secret Service because he had a rangefinder 2 or 3 hours earlier.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
there's all sorts of reports that have come out, and that's why I think it's understandable that so many people are mad and asking questions of how did this happen? And I'm in that camp. How did this happen when all of these things went wrong? It's just incredible to
Yeah, a couple of kind of interesting thoughts on that. So for one thing, they clearly had a beat on him, because the moment that he got off 3 or 4 or 5 shots, the Secret Service sniper, pardon my expression, blew his brains out. The
Yeah.
shooter, so he must have been on him. And I'm thinking, all right, I don't know this for sure, but I'm wondering if there's clearly a bad lack of communication between local police, state police, Secret Service. I'm wondering if the government sniper is looking at the shooter and saying, "Who is he, guys? Who is he? Is he one of ours? Who is he? Who is he?" Right?
And
And,
that's
and
what people had said that. And even there were reports also saying that the sniper did have him in sight because again, they knew he was
Right.
there for that extended period of time, but was told to stand down for whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and he's probably thinking, okay, I'll stand down, but the minute that he pulls a trigger, and the guy got off like 3 or 4 shots, and boom, the sniper took
And
him right out.
and the thing too is, of course, this is even ridiculous that because he never should have been able to get shots out in the first place. It shouldn't
Right.
have had to
That's
take
right.
him pulling the trigger. I mean, the entire thing is absolutely absurd. And the more that comes out, the worse it looks,
Well, the
honestly.
redheaded guy who was interviewed, sorry to refer to him as a redheaded guy, but that's kind of how he
No,
stands
no,
out in this report.
yeah.
But he's saying to the BBC reporter, there's a shooter on the roof, and he's thinking to himself, I think he said, used the phrase, "My God, at least get the president off the stage right now. Somebody go grab Trump and make him stop speaking." Right? Now, another thing about that, where I'm wondering if maybe the sniper thought, is this one of our people? Is this a law enforcement guy? Although then again, look at him. He doesn't look like a law enforcement guy. And if the sniper's looking at him, he's probably thinking, that's not a cop, right? My son John, who was there, said, Dad, there were actually military and police all over the place. Now,
And that's
curiously, they weren't up on the roofs like they should have been. But that might have been why the sniper, if he had the shooter in his sights, might have been thinking, "Who is he? Is he law enforcement? Is he one of our guys?" Because there should have been guys up on the roof. That's the closest building, about 130 yards from the stage. There should have been. And I talked to a friend of mine. In fact, this is the mother of the former Grove City intern who had been to the rally where you were 4 years ago, and she said, "Man, there were snipers on every single roof."
and
Now,
that's
maybe
too.
maybe that's because he was president at the time, so he had higher security, right?
Yeah,
But
and
still,
that's too why whenever you were mentioning before making sure it was safe when your son went, whenever I've heard him speak, I've never even had the slightest thought that it would be unsafe because of the security, because I know that the security is so high. And that's why this is so crazy to me
yeah.
because security is high and it is their job to have people on the roofs and it is their job to be mapping this out days before, and they do that. That is what they do, and that's why it makes no sense that this was able to happen because
And
they
they
do
and they
have high security.
and they do it. I got an email from a friend who hates Trump. He hates Biden too, but he said something like, "Well, maybe Trump should be paying for his own security at the rally." I'm like, no, no, no. The reason you do this, you have protection for candidates and former presidents. You do this not only to protect the candidate, but to protect the crowd, the people in the crowd. So Ronald Reagan used to say, I was more afraid. One of the reasons Reagan quit going to church on Sundays, he said it became dangerous. I was afraid somebody was going to come into the congregation, either in a vehicle loaded up with explosives, like happened in Beirut, Lebanon, with our Marine barracks in October 1983, or just come in with a gun, whatever, and miss me, but kill other people. And when I interviewed RFK Jr., I did 2 long pieces on RFK Jr. for American Spectator, and on the egregious lack of security protection to him, denied by the Biden administration repeatedly. By the way, somebody told me they just finally gave him the protection now, like
Trump's
Sunday
credit,
after the shoot.
Trump
Nice
made
job, guys, right?
yes, to Trump's
But
credit, Trump made a statement saying RFK Jr. should absolutely have security protection. So that was a great move on Trump's part too, because of course.
right. And RFK Jr. had told me when I told us for Spectator, he said, "I'm not so much afraid for myself. I'm afraid that someone in my family or an innocent at one of my rallies is going to get hurt." And that's exactly what happened at the Trump rally. This poor guy from Buffalo Township, Corey Compatore, who Trump made a beautiful tribute to during his speech at the Republican convention on Thursday night. But that guy, I looked, Grace, at video that somebody sent me, somebody who was at the rally, of where Compatore was, and it's really graphic. I don't want to see it again. I saw the video of him with a shirt or towel over his head being carried out by his feet and arms. he was way over to the far left of Trump at the very edge of the grandstand. The guy who got hit with a bullet to the head and killed wasn't even close to Trump. It wasn't somebody behind Trump. He was to the farthest left as he could be, which just shows how sickeningly random all of this is. But you provide protection for the president, ex-president, whoever, whether you hate him or not only to protect him, but to protect you, to protect your family. You know, that could have been my son who took that bullet to the head.
Yeah, yeah, words can't even, it's just horrible. And yeah, we have to continue to lift up his family in prayer and the other two who are still recovering.
Amen.
And thank God I guess that it wasn't all worse, but obviously that's worse enough, especially for that family. So, and it's true, Trump's tribute to him was touching, and he's going to be in attendance at Corey's funeral, which would be yesterday when you're watching it. It's taking place today on Friday. But really, yeah, it was really quite touching. And the whole thing, I will say, in Trump's speech, I thought was really good, and it definitely, the experience does seem to have changed him, but I also think it's changed people. Like the whole entire thing is shifted something where people are looking at everything in a much different way now.
Yeah, really, you can see that first day that Trump goes into Milwaukee into the convention and he's walking in, which is only 48 hours after the guy was, got hit in the ear by the bullet. By the way, a friend of mine who told me, who knows this stuff really well, said that if the shooter had been using hollow point bullets, that bullet probably would have exploded on impact, and that might have killed Trump. So instead, it missed his skull just by a few centimeters. And I asked my son, I said, Trump turned his head like this at the last minute. What was he doing? And he told me, he said, "Oh, Dad, he put up on the screen this imagery, or these charts about immigration."
And you can
And,
see it
and
on your screen right now. I'll put it on.
yeah, and Trump put that up at his RNC speech on Thursday night, right? So he turned his head just enough, and it grazed his ear.
Yeah.
It just barely missed him.
And you can also see on your screen now too what someone's put together of just someone's put together this image that shows how nearly the bullet missed him, and it's insane. If he hadn't done that, it would have hit him, and it's crazy. And even when all of this happened, I had a friend visiting me here in Florida, so we were getting ready to go out, so that's why I hadn't been watching it. I had a friend here, but I got all these calls from my friends, family. All of the sudden, I hadn't been on my phone. It was just down across the room somewhere, and I didn't even want to watch the video. I was so
Yeah,
scared. I didn't want to know. I was so scared of, because at the time I didn't know if he was alive or what happened.
right.
Um, the whole
Could
thing.
you imagine if that was if it was live on TV?
Yeah.
I'm sitting there watching it. I mean, that if his head's just turned the other way, we're gonna watch in live time his head being blown off.
And another thing too, so as we just close this episode, I think that Trump's response to all of this has been excellent, really. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
his
has.
response has been to point to God, and he said in his speech on Thursday night even that the only reason he was standing on stage is because of the grace of Almighty God, and he said that multiple times now. In all the statements he's made since, he's been humbled by the grace of God and by God's mercy that he's okay. And he said in his speech, I shouldn't be here tonight. I'm not supposed to be alive, which was met by chants from the crowd saying, "Yes, you are."
Yeah, right.
And he,
Yeah,
of course, was moved by that, but no, he wasn't, because it really was that close. And something that Tucker Carlson said during his speech at the RNC convention was good also, just on the fact that um, any other political figure who if this had happened to them, so if it had been someone else, they could have easily just immediately jumped onto dividing people further and just invoking rage and calling for all sorts of things and just freaking out over the whole thing. But Trump didn't do that. Trump just has responded in a very unifying way. He's responded in a unifying way, in a humble way, in a gracious way, and I think that that's been just the actions of a true leader and what America does need and what um just the right way to handle it, and it's pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, in our next episode, we're going to make comparisons between this and Reagan's shooting in March 1981. But I'll close with this, something that Trump said in his Thursday night speech, in his acceptance speech of the Republican National Convention. He was really impressed with the people of Butler. And by the way, for me to hear my town's name now by everybody all over the country is really weird. But he was really impressed by the fact that they didn't flee. Everybody kind of stayed and hung in there. And my son told me the same thing. They didn't run away. Yeah, they hit the deck, they hit the floor. But then they got up, and when Trump stood up and said that fight, 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 that place went crazy. They started chanting USA, USA. And my son said now some people did, turn their rage on the media, right? Like, you guys did this, you guys did this, in the sense of comparing him to Hitler. He's going to destroy democracy, Mussolini, dictator, all this stuff. But it's interesting, Grace, if that crowd of rabid MAGA supporters were as hateful and violent as the left claims they are, they would have attacked the reporters physically. They didn't do anything like that.
There weren't any
They
riots in the street after this, nothing. People,
nothing. Exactly. That's right. No riots in the streets. Right.
yeah, and that does point to just these are good American people, and
Yeah. I
you
grew
know,
up with these people. I know. I know.
exactly, and they're good American people,
By the way, most of them former Democrats. Okay, my hometown, Butler, PA, Armco Steel. My dad worked in the steel industry. They were blue collar union Democrats. And to quote Ronald Reagan, the Democrat. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. That's how they all feel. And now today, they're all Trump supporters, or at least a lot of them.
No, and that's something that definitely is common, and as the left's gone further to the left, but just with watching all of this, it's important that we remain in prayer just for the state of our country too. I mean, this is a human issue too. That said, all of this, what we just talked about, has nothing to do really with politics. I mean, and just
Right.
seeing the humanity in all of it, and again, the fact that people didn't run and just hung in there, that's really quite incredible. I mean, it's not what normally happens. But thank you so much for watching this episode of The Weekend Spectator. Next week, you're going to be able to hear really insightful analysis on the comparison between this assassination attempt and that of Reagan, from the expert himself, Paul Kengor, especially. So I know, right? Yeah, so you won't want to miss next week's. It'll be really interesting. So make sure that you tune into that and that you're liking, subscribing, and staying up to date with The Weekend Spectator with Paul and Grace. We look forward to seeing you next week and hope that you'll share this with your friends.
See y'all later.